Hello, everyone. Jeff Jensen, Director of Community Programs with Trees Forever, and I am pleased to be here talking with you about tremendous growth and how your community can grow their tree canopy. Here's an overview of the workshop. We're going to talk about why trees and then get into the meat of our program, the top 10 ways to grow, the tree canopy. So the mission at Trees Forever is to plant and care for trees in the environment by empowering people, building community, and promoting stewardship. We are a nonprofit 501c3 in both Iowa and Illinois. A lot of folks don't realize that, but we do have two staff members working in Illinois as well as staff in Iowa. As an organization, we have planted over 3.4 million trees since our founding and have roughly 25 or so employees in Iowa and Illinois. Trees Forever has a broad reach, working with roughly 200 communities annually, engaging approximately 6,000 volunteers on average, and awarding over $600,000 in pass-through funding to landowners and communities in Iowa and Illinois. I believe it's valuable to reinforce the multiple benefits of trees and why I view them as green infrastructure. Hence the why trees. Trees give us many things. If I were presenting to my 5th and 6th graders in Sac and Dickinson County, we would list them off. And the standard responses would be oxygen, wood for houses and pencils, homes for animals, and shade. And those are, of course, all correct. But I want to take it up a notch for this audience and get us to really think beyond the elementary benefits of trees and truly understand how valuable they are. Let's talk dollars and cents and touch on the economic benefits of trees, starting with shade and energy efficiency. Did you know, probably not yet, but we're going to get to it later in the presentation, that 2 of our longest tree planting partnerships are with utility providers in Black Hills Energy and Alliant Energy? Any idea why they have supported us for so long? Well, the answer is energy efficiency. These utilities recognize the energy-saving benefits of trees, from shade to windbreaks. Shaded trees in communities also require less maintenance and reduced resurfacing needs, which equates to saved money for the city. Now, aside from the direct energy efficiency benefits and improved life of shaded roads, we see other economic benefits, like higher property values of 10 to 15%, longer and more frequent shopping trips by consumers. Studies have shown that people spend approximately 12% more in well-treed shopping areas compared to those without. Now, these benefits might seem common sense, and they are, but let me show you the science. So here's a fun little project done in College Station, Texas, over a 6-day period, and a couple of data points. The top line information that I want you to keep in mind as you work through these scenarios is the average air temperature was 91 degrees and the average humidity was 51%. So let's get to the pictures here. You're looking at 8 common scenarios that they laid out. Starting in the top left is a sidewalk with grass on both sides. Next to that is a picture of a sidewalk with a road next to it. Next to that is a picture of a sidewalk with grass on both sides and trees on one side. Then the last one on the top row, all the way to the right, sidewalk with one side grass and the other side roadway. Moving to the bottom row of pictures, starting on the left, a sidewalk with grass on both sides and trees on both sides. Next to that is a sidewalk with one side grass and trees and the other side roadway. Next to that is another example of grass on both sides of the sidewalk and one side of trees. And finally, another example of grass and trees on one side. You should see 2 temperatures below each picture. The top number is the average of the temperature across the entire day. The bottom temperature is the average of the afternoon only. Take a look. Hands down, the sidewalk scenarios with grass and especially trees are significantly cooler than the others. Fairly common sense, I know, but I was surprised at how big the difference really is. Here's another study showing the effects of street trees on asphalt concrete paving performance and how much can be saved over a 30-year time frame because of the shade. This is another study that is intuitive, but a little surprising. The benefits of shading the actual air conditioning unit. This study found that savings of 2 to 10% are achievable by simply shading your AC unit. And it really makes sense. I mean, an air conditioning unit is a giant metal box that is pulling in outside ambient air. And if that air passes over a hot metal box that's been sitting in the sun all afternoon, the air will be hotter, requiring more energy to cool it down for a nice, comfortable interior of your house. So, some retail benefits. Let's talk about the good first, the perks. You can see this chart, bar chart here. You have business and residents are the two different respondents, and they are responding to a host of benefits. And so this data shows shoppers are willing to spend 10 to 15% more if trees and or native plants are present. However, the converse, the flip side, business owners tend to devalue trees because of the perceived problems that trees can cause. So think obstructing their signs, maybe leaves dropping in the fall, having to deal with them, birds pooping on the sidewalk, things like that. So a real dilemma occurs. If you're a business owner, do the benefits outweigh the annoyances? Trees provide social benefits to all of society. For example, well-treed streets contribute to a 46% decrease in vehicle crashes. For human health and well-being, a mere 3 to 5 minutes in nature can reduce anger, anxiety, and pain, and actually induce relaxation. Environmental benefits range from reduced stormwater to carbon sequestration and wildlife habitat. Trees truly are green infrastructure that can provide valuable resources for decades. Trees matter economically, environmentally, and socially. The more trees we have and the more mature these trees are, the more benefits we receive. That's why it's important to grow our canopies. Now you know the why trees are important. Next, let's dig into the how to get more trees in your community. These are the top 10 ways to grow your tree canopy, and we're going to talk about each one of these briefly. Strap in, hold on, here we go. Have you ever wondered the difference between a wish and a goal? With both, you want something, right? With a goal, you need a plan to achieve the goal. With a wish, well, that is what a wish is, simply hoping that you'll get what you want without any sort of plan. At the community level, before setting a goal to move forward, it's important to assess what is already present. In terms of tree cover, the best way to understand community canopy is through a tree inventory. What is a tree inventory? For our purposes, it's information collected on public trees. Things like where they are, what's the type of land they're growing in, the species of the tree, the general size measured in dBH. Now, dBH stands for diameter at breast height. What's the general maintenance required for the canopy? What are some of the annual benefits provided? And the percent of public land that is covered by tree canopy. The Iowa DNR conducts tree inventories of communities 5,000 and smaller on an ongoing basis. And if you're a town smaller than 5,000 in population, you absolutely should contact Emma Hannigan, our Iowa DNR urban forester. Inventories for some communities are currently being updated from past inventories that are no longer accurate and out of date. Information on all past inventoried communities can be found on the Iowa DNR Urban Forestry website. The Iowa Department of Natural Resources Urban Forestry website is a gold mine of information. If we scroll down on the page, one of the things we're going to be able to find is information on community tree inventories. This gives just some basic overview of that process. And then below that, this is where you can actually find PDFs of all of the inventories that have been completed so far. It goes in alphabetical order from Ackley to basically Zering, A to Z. And you can actually look at each and every one of these tree inventories if you'd like. But more importantly, you can look up your community's tree inventory. Another way to view trees is through the Community Tree Viewer. This is a fantastic resource because it allows you to actually get down and find out specific trees within your community. We're going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit here and see if we can't find trees in the city of Hampton. And as we zoom in, these trees start to appear. And one of the really neat things about this tool is we can get down to individual trees and actually find out at this particular location, a Norway maple, a green ash, an apple tree, Central Avenue at the intersection of, let's say, 5th Street. We have this American basswood, city managed tree, a mature tree. Here we have a red maple. And so all of this information can be gathered and analyzed through the Iowa DNR inventories and the Iowa Community Tree Inventory Viewer. Once the current percent canopy cover is known, a goal for growth can be set. Remember, the more trees we have and the older they are, the more benefit we get. That's why it's important to set growth goals. Iowa has a statewide goal of increasing the canopy by 3% by 2050. This is about 3 million trees over 30 years for 3% growth. Now, that kind of has a nice ring to it. For context, in 2010, it was 18.5 statewide percent canopy. So 21.5 is the overall statewide goal. What is your community canopy cover percentage? Is your community at 3%? Can you set a goal to increase tree canopy by 1%? 2? Could your town set a goal to double your current percent cover? All great questions. To start and to see your community's canopy cover, visit the Iowa DNR Canopy Cover Guide. In setting canopy goals, it's important to think about equity. In many cities across the United States, there are typically less trees in racially diverse areas and areas with less wealth. Trees are critical infrastructure for all members of communities. So it's crucial that these factors enter the conversation when growing the canopy. To that end, I'd like to share with you a really cool tool that we can use. It's an interactive map of tree equity scores in local communities and contains a suite of factors to consider when thinking about your community's tree equity. And in Iowa, we have relatively few really urban populated areas. So I'm going to pick on Ames, for example, and zoom into Ames so we can take a look at this map and figure out what it's telling us. So these tree equity scores will pop up as you hover over these different geographic boundaries. And we can click to explore if we'd like to find out more. So this is Iowa Congressional District 4. It has a tree equity score of 67. And we can look at some of these score indicators over here on the left in this spider chart. So we have a priority index that shows various percentages ranging from people of color to seniors, people in poverty, health risk index, and more. And it even provides a canopy cover goal. In this case, the goal would be 24%. However, the current canopy cover is only 9%. So this is, again, a really cool tool that can help inform us as we determine where we're going to plant trees to increase our tree canopy. Number 2 in the top 10 ways to grow your community tree canopy, create a management or master plan. Once a goal is set, outline steps to reach that goal. A good management plan includes available resources, be they physical, financial, etc., the people and organizations that can help, from local government to private groups to nonprofits, the DNR, and more. Target planting locations and maintenance plans. Don't forget, maintenance is just important as the actual planting. For DNR management plans, each community that gets inventoried is also provided a series of recommendations for the city to act upon. Number 3 in the top 10 ways to grow our tree community canopy, ordinances. Ordinances provide a framework for what is and is not allowed. Tree-based ordinances focus on planting, preserving, and protecting trees, and these can be both public and private trees. Community tree ordinance complexity varies from community to community based on resources and local government structure. A community tree ordinance should contain, at a minimum, a recommended species list and a prohibited species list. Both lists should identify trees by common and scientific name. Some lists will also recommend cultivars in order to assist homeowners with the selection process. For example, honey locusts without the thorns and helicopter pods. These lists, examples from the city of Marion, show scientific, common, and some different cultivars. These are really good examples. A more complete community tree ordinance will include language regarding ownership of the trees, who can plant, prune, and remove, and allowable planting locations, and often a permitting process. Iowa City really did a nice job on the layout and included some graphics and pictures with this particular document. A strong tree-forward ordinance will contain specific verbiage regarding the preservation of trees. If a tree must be removed, common replacement strategies are either 1-to-1 or 1-to-1 based on caliper of removed tree. For example, a 20-inch caliper tree is not going to be replaced with a similar sized and aged tree. So to make up for that deficiency, 5 4-inch caliper trees need to be planted. That type of 1-to-1 replacement, not simply an old tree for a young tree, is the way to go. This particular example on the screen is from the city of Davenport. Here are a few resources you can access to help your community develop their own tree ordinances. Number 4 on our top 10 list, plant a diverse mix of trees. Diversity is the key in maintaining health and longevity of the community tree canopy. Many of us are familiar with the situation involving Dutch elm disease, which wiped out millions of large old elm trees. While we did recover and disease-resistant elm trees are planted in communities today, it seems we haven't learned our lesson, because now we have the emerald ash borer, and it's going to kill almost all of our ash trees. And of course, what is the number 1 species of tree in our forests and towns all across the state? You guessed it, ash. And looking down the list of other overrepresented trees, we have over a third of Iowa community tree canopy being maple. And that's going to be the next issue, is dealing with the invasive Asian longhorn beetles. It just never ends. It's at this point in the presentation where we talk about the great debate, the use of natives versus non-natives. It's a debate that's been going on a long time, so I think it's worth hitting on some of the pros and cons. Some of the benefits planting native include it supports other native flora and fauna. So think of the beneficiary co-development or co-evolution of things like, well, a great example would be the monarch butterfly and the milkweed. The monarch needs the milkweed. It's dependent on the milkweed. So it supports other native flora and fauna. Natives usually are accustomed to our climate. They've co-evolved with our climate. And natives typically have longer lifespans than those non-native and invasive counterparts. A really helpful tip, go exploring. There really are many, many great colorful natives to choose from. Okay, now to the benefits of planting non-natives. I guess they technically can still support some native flora and fauna, but it's simply not the same as that dependency that can develop with coevolution. Non-natives are usually accustomed to our climate, but time will tell. And the thing with non-natives is they can occasionally be more pest or disease resistant than the native counterparts, especially if it's an area where they just don't have the pest or disease issue in the new area it's being brought to compared to where it was native previously. So what species do you have in your community? You can identify current community tree species from your community tree inventory. And then a few resources for actually selecting new trees to be planted. Well, there is the Trees Forever Species Guide to be found on our website. There's the Iowa DNR Rethinking Maple Guide, a really great document outlining some alternatives to maples. Remember, right tree, right place. If you look at the picture there, obviously not the right tree for the right place. A couple of factors to consider when selecting tree species are going to be height, available space, soil, moisture and type, sun exposure, and more. Okay, we come to the halfway point, evaluating planning and development guidelines. Think about the current uses for land in your community. Do you have areas designated for agriculture, development? How are the zoning use designations in these areas affecting the community tree canopy? For example, are there requirements for planting along with development? Are there requirements for protecting existing trees in areas being developed? For example, look at this picture here. This lone tree the contractors are attempting to save being driven over by heavy equipment to grade the site. Now, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure out that this is going to cause some damage to the root system of that tree. Not only that, but look how far down they've excavated. Remember, most of the tree roots are in the top 2 feet of the ground. Another example worth mentioning, in some instances, when building parking areas, communities might require a tree be planted in the area per X amount of parking spaces. So that this way you put in the number of trees, and that grows with the number of parking spaces constructed to maintain a balance. In a growing community, open space on the edge of town, industrial areas, farmland, and more is often developed for new business and residential homes. Good planning and zoning requirements will take into consideration the number of trees required, placement, and more. Is there an opportunity to beef up your community's requirements? These new developments are often blank canvases that are prime locations for trees. Planting now will ensure future generations benefit from those trees. But as you plan for trees in new development, make sure to give your trees a fighting chance. Construction damage and compaction can severely stunt their development and oftentimes outright kill the tree. Protect your new resource and the dollars and time put into planting that resource, and think through how construction may impact new trees. Finally, as you're thinking of planning and zoning for new development, think through how it may impact existing trees. Protecting and keeping the trees you have today is the easiest and fastest way to grow the tree canopy. The images above show a large forested stand of trees and the new homes that took those trees' place. Not only do those remaining trees risk serious health decline, a large swath of tree canopy was lost. Number 6 in our top 10 list, consider residential planting incentive programs. The majority of community land is private residential property. To reach canopy goals, it's important to plant here too. Engaging with private homeowners can happen in many ways. And don't forget about the grant programs. Black Hills Energy Power of Trees, Alliant Energy, DNR Residential Tree Program, Grow Green Trees for Kids, and more. Black Hills Energy provides grants of up to $5,000 per community for community tree planting of landscape-sized trees. This is only available to communities that are clients of Black Hills Energy, and projects should focus on energy efficiency and include volunteer involvement. For more information, visit the Trees Forever website to get the details. Similar to Black Hills Energy, Alliant Energy also provides grants up to $5,000 per community for tree planting of landscape-sized trees on public property. Again, this opportunity is only available to communities that are clients of Alliant Energy. For more information, visit the Trees Forever website for an application. Grow Green for Students is a fantastic partnership between Green State Credit Union Foundation and Trees Forever. Grants are made available to schools in a 9-county target area for tree planting on school grounds and lesson plans around trees and the natural environment for the students. We've come to number 7 on our top 10 list. Encourage planting programs for all private property. Typically, 60 to 70% of a community is private property, and not all is residential. Think private schools, businesses, churches, nursing homes, and more. It's important to talk with these entities and seek to engage them in tree planting efforts. Whoa, oversized check alert. Not only should businesses think about trees on their property, they can also think about how their customers benefit from trees and pay it forward. Pictured here is Christian County Farm Services in Taylorville, Illinois, who raised money to plant trees on private property after a devastating tornado ripped through town. Number 8 on the top 10 list, engage the community in planting, maintenance, and education. Everyone in the community benefits from trees, so it's important to think about how you can engage individuals. Be creative in finding ways to engage with fellow community members about trees, whether it's through education, planting, or maintenance. All community members benefit from trees, so share that knowledge with one another. Let others know why community trees are important. The more people that care, the more people willing to protect and plant more trees. Consider hosting an educational event or reach out to organizations for expert advice or speakers. You could seek formal training. Trees Forever offers a training program called Tree Keepers, an educational course designed to teach participants how to plant and care for trees and to be an advocate for trees in their own communities. Planting trees doesn't have to be the sole responsibility of city staff. Tree planting is a fun and fulfilling activity. Work with your local community to plan volunteer plantings in public spaces. Possible volunteer ideas include local tree boards, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H and FFA groups, local businesses, Lions Club, any group or individual that might be interested. And funding could come from local organization sponsorships, Black Hills or Alliant Energy, seedling programs, Grow Green, Trees for Kids, and more. Just like planting, maintenance doesn't have to be the sole responsibility of city staff. Work with your local community to plan volunteer maintenance days. One of my favorites is Community Spring Cleanup Days, where branches and sticks can be picked up and any tree pruning and maintenance can be done. Remember, caring for the urban forest takes a community. Number 9, light at the end of the tunnel. We're coming to the end of our top 10 list. Manage and eliminate invasive plants. Invasive plants are not native to the area where they're growing and cause economic or environmental harm or harm to human health. Invasive species compete with native plants and can damage our forests, both urban and rural. Managing invasive species is absolutely critical for long-term forest health, especially after the derecho and all the tree loss. It really opened up areas in the forest and expanded the forest edge where invasive species thrive. So, what are invasive species? Invasive plant species are plants that potentially cause economic or environmental damage to the area. Many plants have been introduced into the north central United States without much impact, but a few species, such as garlic mustard, buckthorn, multiflora rose, and bush honeysuckle, have become very problematic and are impacting woodlands severely. Now, exotic species are those, maybe like the tulip as an example, which are not native. But just because something may be non native does not mean that it will be invasive. There is a difference. The problem with invasive species is that they crowd out native species, contributing to less diversity. They also can disrupt ecosystems by altering soil structure and chemistry. Often, native species have co-evolved with other plants or insects on which they depend. Again, I go back to that example of the monarch butterfly and the milkweed. Economically, invasive species cost money in the form of lost agricultural, forestry, and agroforestry productivity, and of course the cost to actually treat to keep invasive species in check. They also contribute to lost revenue from tourism, from decreased hunting, fishing, and other outdoor activities. These costs are borne by everyone: woodland owners, local, state, and federal governments, and even homeowners. The first step in managing invasive species is becoming familiar with them and being on the lookout. Unfortunately, there are many different types of invasive species. So, to help with ID and to start thinking about alternatives, check out the Trees Forever Plant This, Not That guide and the Iowa DNR Forestry Invasive Species Guide. Both are great resources. This is going to be a few of those common invasive species. You see the honeysuckle there, the Oriental bittersweet, not to be confused with American bittersweet, but unfortunately we still have Oriental bittersweet being sold, and it rapidly reproduces, and just you can see the vines just choke out trees. These particular invasive species are still being sold today. So just a word of caution, stay away from these. There are better alternatives. Another great tool in handling invasive species is a roadside plan. This is a management plan focused on using native plants along roadsides and trails while reducing invasive species. And some of these practices can even be applied to other areas of the community. Does your community have a roadside plan? If not, you really should consider getting one. They're easy to do, and Trees Forever can help. Communities can file roadside plans with the Living Roadway Trust Fund, a branch of the Iowa DOT. Filing a plan is the first step for communities to access grant dollars provided through the Living Roadway Trust Fund. Once a plan is approved, grant dollars can be applied for in over 13 different categories, including dollars to help cover the cost of equipment, cost of trees along roads and trails, and community entryways. And the best part is you're eligible every single year. Last but not least, we come to the end of our top 10 list, and let's keep it fun. Celebrate community successes like tree plantings and volunteer work days. Host fun outdoor activities, such as the biggest tree photo competition or a fall foliage walk, and seek out community recognition. Programs such as Tree City USA or Bird Friendly Iowa recognize those communities going above and beyond. Keeping it fun also keeps the volunteers coming back for more. I wanted to touch briefly on Tree City USA. This is a designation celebrating community commitment and work towards maintaining and growing tree canopy cover. Achieving this award can help build community pride and spirit and provide another reason showing that your community is a great place to live. The four main standards for achieving recognition include maintaining a tree board or department, having a community tree ordinance, spending at least $2 per capita on urban forestry, and celebrating Arbor Day. To learn more, visit Iowa DNR's Urban Forestry webpage, scroll to the bottom, and contact Emma Hannigan, Iowa DNR State Urban Forester, with questions. Bird Friendly Iowa is a bird-focused conservation and educational outreach program. Overall, the program promotes birds in healthy habitats. Bird Friendly offers a designation program for cities recognizing their commitment to birds and their habitat and celebrating the community's work. Cycling is a popular activity in Iowa. This Tour de Trees bike ride taps into the Tour de France concept and is a great way to get families and individuals out among the trees. Several sites can be identified and put on a map. You can make it more active with official stops with volunteers at the sites to explain the trees that riders are seeing. Or consider making a set map that people can pick up or find in the paper and follow. Consider calling attention to the trees in your community through a big tree contest where people vie to find the biggest tree on public or private property. An award or certificate can be given to the winner. The price tag on the left is a fun way to show the monetary value trees provide in your community. Their highly visible nature catches the eye of passerbys. Holiday-themed tree events are fun too. Shown here is a Valentine's-themed event where tags are placed that say, "Would you be my Valentine?" along with a few tree facts, a social media hashtag, and the volunteer group who put them up. Place them in your business district or in a long linear stretch of road where people can see them. Consider options for other holidays too. And remember, do not leave things tied to trees long term. It can girdle and kill the tree. Social media is a great way to get people involved with tree appreciation. Promote tree-themed hashtags. Ask people to post pictures with their favorite tree. Sponsor a holiday tree lighting contest. The more people love and value trees in your community, the more you encourage a tree ethic in your community, the more people will be willing to support issues related to trees and help grow the tree canopy. Whew, it's been a journey, but we've made it through our list of the top 10 ways to grow your tree canopy. Great stuff that can be shared with neighbors, city council, tree boards, parks and rec committees, public works staff, and more. I want to thank you for sticking with me, and at this point, I think we're ready to open it up to questions.